My mother always wanted me to be a doctor. I know, typical parent. And I knew I wanted to help people in some way, but I didn't exactly know how. I'm originally from South Africa, and when I was in 11th grade, I was trying to figure out what undergraduate program I wanted to go into. And there was this 3-year-old named Pippi who sustained severe burns over a significant portion of her body. And unfortunately, she was in a medically induced coma for 6 months. Her family ended up reaching out to a company in Boston who grew and flew skin grafts to her all the way to South Africa. And I remember thinking, if South Africa, the medical hub for a large portion of Africa, didn't have any treatment options for our own patients like Pippi, what were we doing? So I decided I wanted to go into biomedical engineering. But unfortunately, it wasn't an undergraduate degree in South Africa at the time, so I moved to the US. As I've moved into my graduate career, I joined the lab of Dr. Coburn at Worcester Polytechnic Institute in Massachusetts. Now, Dr. Coburn was a very tenacious young investigator who loved any and all biomaterials. And one day, she brought a jar of kombucha to me from her kitchen and said, "Elzani, I made my SCOBY transparent, and this is your thesis project now." At the time, I had only tried kombucha once, and I don't like it. And I had no idea what a SCOBY was. But I learned that kombucha is fermented sweet tea, and the bacteria in kombucha makes this jelly-like material at the top called a SCOBY. Okay, so my advisor made a transparent SCOBY. Why is this important enough that it could possibly be my thesis? Well, it turns out the SCOBY is made out of a material called bacterial-derived cellulose, and it is an amazing biomaterial. It has been used for a lot of different things, and it is extremely strong. It's able to absorb a lot of liquid. It has an absolutely gorgeous fibrous network structure when you zoom into it, and it also forms into the shape of the container that you culture it in. And now, if you're able to add something like transparency to a material that's already so amazing, you open it up to a world of additional applications. It could now be used possibly for contact lenses, repairing the eyes, or even alternatives to plastic wrap in your kitchen. So, I took this jar from my advisor's kitchen and got to work. I got myself my own mason jars for science, and using a beaker and hot plate, I was brewing tea for exactly 15 minutes because you have to follow the protocol and you have to make it reproducible because I'm a scientist. And as I was walking around with my jars of sugar water, my lab mates were all making 3D cancer tumor models. They told me my research was gross. And I mean, sometimes it did kind of look like boogers, so I get it. I, of course, needed to test out the shape properties, so I made myself a kombucha SCOBY dinosaur, which that was on all of my presentations and poster presentations through grad school. As I continued my research, I figured out that the way my advisor had made her SCOBY transparent in the kitchen wasn't something that was reproducible in the lab. However, I figured out that if you fed the bacteria different sugars, it also made the SCOBY transparent. And this simple way didn't alter how you cultured the kombucha, it didn't change how you cleaned the material, and it also didn't change those really amazing properties that this material already had. So while I was doing all of these experiments and all of this research, I also found out that this material had previously been looked into as a wound dressing material, and it is actually an amazing wound dressing material. It's able to cover the wound and allow the wound to breathe without drying out the wound at all, and that extremely beautiful matrix structure that I showed you earlier is the exact same structure as your skin's matrix as well. It even has immediate and pain-relieving effects when you put it onto the wound. And now, with my work, it's able to be transparent. That way, you're able to see if there's any potential infection brewing underneath without the need to pull up the dressing. I also added an antibacterial surface, which happens to glow under certain wavelengths of light. So if we summarize my PhD research, I made glowing, transparent, dinosaur-shaped kombucha SCOBYs from my advisor's kitchen. And I still don't like the taste of kombucha, and I'm definitely not the type of doctor that my mother was hoping for. But I do have my PhD now, and my dinosaur SCOBY's on my patent application.